One of the presidential candidates maintains that the single greatest contributor to poverty in America is the breakdown of the traditional family.
Yes, we need to address the economic concerns of the people of our country, and we must. And yes, we must address the national security threats to our country. We must. But if that's all we do, and we do not come back to the understanding that the only explanation for this great republic of ours is the intervention of God's providence, then we will never see this nation rise to its greatness again, because that is the only explanation for how we came into being, how we have been sustained, and the only explanation of how we can ever hope to go forward. We need to be a nation under God that unapologetically recognizes that the founders of our country, regardless of what they personally practiced, they clearly understood that there was a God to whom we ultimately will answer, and our laws need to reflect His.
And Republican Mike Huckabee says America has lost its moral compass, but it can be put in the right direction. The former Arkansas governor was in Tinley Park, where he spoke at the In Defense of Life, Why All Lives Matter symposium, sponsored by the Freedom's Journal Institute.
I'm convinced this country can get back on its feet, but it can until it first gets on its knees and repents. And when we do that, we can be a great nation again.
Following his speech, Governor Huckabee met with reporters covering the FJI event.
Governor?
Yes, sir.
How important is it to elect a pro-life president in 2016?
Well, I think it's critical for us to end the scourge that has been this country's most embarrassing nightmare over the past 42 years. The taking of 60 million innocent lives is, I think, is unconscionable. And while right now we're having a very legitimate and a very important debate over the funding of Planned Parenthood, we should have it. We should end that funding. No question about that. But the bigger question we need to be addressing is not just ending the funding for one abortion provider, but it's ending this national nightmare of abortion, period.
Could you just address how important it is to keep social conservatives involved in the party, whichever party they pick?
Well, let's be very clear that if people who are the pro-life and the pro-family element of the Republican Party all bail out, the one thing we can be sure of, we will not win another election. Because every time we nominate someone who is a strong pro-life, pro-family candidate, especially for president, we win. When we don't, we lose. I keep hearing people say, let's don't touch these issues. I'm thinking, well, if we really want to keep losing, that's the most effective method I can think of. What we need to be doing is giving people who are faith voters, who are, by the way, also economic conservatives, and they're also national security conservatives. They're full spectrum conservatives. We need to be making sure that we have candidates that inspire them and make them want to go vote. Here's a fact. If Mitt Romney had had 4% more of the evangelical voters in 2012, just evangelicals, that doesn't even include all the pro-life Catholics and other mainstream Christian denominational people, 4% more of the evangelicals, he'd be President Romney today. And we cannot assume that we can win national elections by moving away from issues that matter to people, fundamental issues of life and death. We need to believe that we will win elections when we're inclusive with those issues.
Governor, a lot of people of faith are really concerned about religious liberty now that same-sex marriage is the law of the land. How can religious freedom be best protected?
I've committed that if president, I will issue an executive order that says that the federal government will protect the religious liberty of every individual, every church, every institution, hospital. We'll order the Secretary of Defense to protect that of the chaplains and every individual soldier, sailor, Marine, airman, Coast Guardsman. And further, we'll instruct the Attorney General to vigorously defend people whose religious liberty rights are upended. And there are a number of cases across the country right now. It's not just isolated, and it's beginning to grow where people are being truly challenged in their fundamental rights as people of faith, whether or not they're able to carry out their businesses according to their conscience, whether they can simply just practice their faith. And some of these really outrageous attempts to challenge people's faith, and with the government saying, it's okay for you to believe, but we're going to tell you the extent of how much you can believe. Well, the Constitution is explicitly clear. Congress shall make no law that would in any way infringe upon a person's religious liberty to establish a religion or to prohibit the free exercise thereof. So the basic prohibition, you can't prohibit and you can't prefer. And right now I think the government is doing a little of both.
Special thanks to Dr. Eric Wallace and the Freedom's Journal Institute for the symposium and for allowing IFI access to Governor Huckabee. For IllinoisFamily.org, I'm Monty Larrick.